Kia ora anō, thank you to those who've just joined us. You are now in session 2A, GLAMs and the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories Curriculum, correct? Kei te pai. All right, I am going to not say much more. I'm going to hand over to our next speaker, who is James Taylor from Tāmaki, Paenga, Hira, Auckland Museum. Kia ora, James.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you, Frith, and also to Sam. I think that his presentation gave quite a nice context to the work that we're doing here. And also just want to say thanks to him as well, because he's been very supportive of the work that we're doing. We've had lots of conversations about this work as well. So for the last 4 or 5 years at Tāmaki Paenga Hira, Auckland War Memorial Museum, we have been thinking about the ways that we can make our online collections more accessible as part of this new history curriculum. We've been involved, even pre-COVID, talking with the Ministry of Education and other national GLAM institutions about providing resources for teachers. And so this afternoon, I'm just going to give you an overview of a couple of projects that we've been working on, and really just talking about some of the frameworks and some of the thinking that we've been doing to get to the point that we are, because there has been a lot of thought and a lot of consultation that's gone on with it. I don't want to talk too much about the actual curriculum itself, but just quickly, I think the really important thing is, and you know, the people in this room know that, but the collections that we hold as GLAM institutions are the primary source material that make up those local histories that teachers and students need for this new curriculum. So, you know, we're the holders of these collections, and we need to think about how we can make them as accessible as possible. Sam mentioned that teachers, you know, can be time poor, and they need material that's engaging, that's easy for them to use, that's going to be engaging for use in the classroom. The two areas of the curriculum that we're particularly focused on are around the know and the do aspects. So the know aspect is around local history. So for our case, it's the histories of Tāmaki, Makaurau, Auckland, and also critical thinking. So thinking critically, again, about material culture generally for the museum collections. I'll talk about this shortly, but there's an opportunity for a new audience for us. And also, we anticipated a heavy demand for GLAM resources, so we wanted to try to front foot that and kind of get ahead of it before we started getting a bunch of bespoke inquiries coming in. So, as I mentioned, so what we've been trying to do is think about how we can make our collections accessible, engaging, and useful for teaching and learning the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories Curriculum. We quite early on focused on a particular target audience, and that is Auckland secondary school teachers and students year 9+ that are covered in this new curriculum in the social studies part of the curriculum. So in Auckland, there are 270,000 high school students, but only 7% of them are current collections online users at the moment. It's really difficult in the conversations that we've had with teachers, it's really difficult for them to bring students out of the classroom and into the museum. So the Auckland Museum aims to get 100,000 students through the door every year, but that 100,000 students is primarily primary school and younger, because they can kind of take full classes out for the day and go for a wander around the museum. So the other thing is that we can pitch the resources at a higher level to the older students, so we can not just give them the local histories, but also engage with that critical thinking skills part of the curriculum. And as I previously mentioned, we envisioned a large amount of bespoke inquiries from this group. One of the reasons, again, for our online focus is that because there's this large audience, they'll be accessing this collection in classrooms, but we can potentially reach a large audience and reach this audience at scale too. So before we ran off and did a bunch of work and produced a bunch of resources, we actually have undertaken quite a bit of research. One of the things that we've been thinking about is how we can leverage our partnership websites that we make our open collection accessible on beyond the museum's website. So we work closely with Wikipedia, and in 2022 the Wikimedia Foundation funded some research for us around Wikipedia and the Aotearoa NZ History Curriculum, where we basically surveyed teachers about the use of Wikipedia in classrooms, thinking about whether or not we could leverage Wikipedia as a platform. And then we also produced another report which is called Online Resources to support the New Zealand Histories Curriculum, more focused on what the museum could do. Dr. Mark Shen, who is a retired academic from Victoria University, joined us, and we basically did a literature review, we undertook an online survey, and also we did some interviews with senior teachers, and this was all during the long COVID lockdowns in Auckland. We had pretty good coverage across the country, and it matched quite closely the spread of state versus independent schools as well. And as well as the online respondents, we also did the interviews with the sort of thought leaders and senior history and social studies teachers in Auckland. So these are some of the questions that we were interested in around the topics that teachers are confident or not confident teaching, what resources are valuable for teachers, what resources could the museum provide, and then we also wanted to know what their perceptions of Wikipedia, using Wikipedia as a resource are, and whether teachers would use editing and creating Wikipedia articles as a means of teaching applied historical method. We thought that we would get negative perceptions of Wikipedia, but the actual research results were quite surprising. So in actual fact, Wikipedia is fairly well used in secondary schools in New Zealand. Most of the, 90-something% of the teachers use it to prepare lessons, and also a high percentage of the teachers actually allow their students to use Wikipedia these days. So there's been a bit of a shift in the use of Wikipedia over the last 3 or 4 years, and not quite sure what the reasons for that are, but might be worth investigating. So we felt confident that we could start leveraging Wikipedia, but what came through was that there was a concern around local histories on Wikipedia. So what we found in terms of online resources generally was that the big national stories were told fairly well, and that's due to the work of the Ministry for Culture and Heritage, New Zealand History Net. Those sorts of resources do teach those big national topics quite well, but the local histories are not as reliable on Wikipedia and more generally online. And again, when we think about the curriculum, which has its focus on the local aspect of the curriculum, that's where we could see an opportunity. And also that the teachers trusted the information that the museum provides in terms of local history. And I think that's something that we could say for most GLAM institutions across New Zealand. So what came out of the research was that the museum could support teachers by providing resources on Wikipedia that enhance articles on Auckland suburbs, and that there's also a secondary opportunity to create a more curated and bespoke history resources linked to our collections and reflect different aspects of the curriculum as well. So I'm going to talk about those. So the first project is really what I would describe as our curated collection, and we've got a working title of it called From Collections to Classrooms. And we've come up, I should actually, just before I talk about that, I'm working with Lucy McIntosh, who used to be a history curator at the museum and now is a research associate, and has just published a really awesome book on the history of Auckland, and also one of my colleagues, Tangi Fitzgerald, in the Learning and Public Programs team as well. So there's 3 of us working on this curated project. And we've come up with a series of criteria around the collections that we will choose and the stories that we can tell. And again, I won't talk about all of these, but one of the sort of central things for us is around that the object itself needs to be able to tell a sort of story, and that story needs to be relevant and engaging for secondary school students. And secondly, that the stories that we tell can be shared in a way that is culturally safe. With the Wikipedia project, we're primarily reliant on published sources and open access content, but with this curated project, we can dive into our Taonga Māori and our Pacific collections, which will have cultural permissions over them, essentially. And then, real basic thing that we want, good quality visual images and media, so that's actually interesting for the students. So the resource itself will consist of 10 curated objects. There'll be short and longer text to cater to different reading ages, sort of explaining and contextualising the item and connecting that to the curriculum. And then I think what the unique part of this resource is that we've got creating a series of video resources where we're basically recording, and this is a couple of screenshots of them. Lucy's doing some interviews with curatorial staff talking about the objects and talking about how curators interpret the objects, but then we're also bringing in knowledge holders to talk about the objects and to speak from their perspective as well. So we're providing multiple perspectives on the objects. The really cool thing about this, the first object that we've chosen as a sort of pilot project is this petition box, and this petition box was part of the petition for the New Zealand Wars holiday, and that petition was run by the students from Aotearoa College. So we've interviewed Leah Bell and Kiana Ormsby, who is the creator of the box, and this box itself was actually part of the spur to create the new history curriculum. So we thought it was a nice story because of that, and we also thought it was a nice story because it gives the students a sense of what young people can achieve in terms of collective action. And we caught up with some teachers from Western Springs College the other day, and they thought that was awesome, but they were a bit afraid of a bunch of petitions arriving on their desk from students that were getting a bit brassed off with things. So, sort of a little bit worried about that. So that's the curated collection. So yeah, and I'll talk about the contrast. But the second project that we are undertaking is called Understanding Our Past, and it's using Wikipedia as a tool to support local history in Tāmaki Makaurau. So there's a couple of QR codes if you want to have a look at what I'm talking about here, so a couple of examples. But basically what this project is that we've taken the research that we did and gone and applied to the Wikimedia Foundation for some more money to enable us to undertake large-scale editing of Auckland suburb Wikipedia pages, because what we know is that teachers are being asked to teach local histories to teach the histories of the area. So for instance, if you're a teacher at Mount Albert Grammar, the first thing you're probably going to do is chuck Mount Albert into Google, and the first thing that appears on that search result will be the Mount Albert Wikipedia page. And so if we can enhance that content and make that useful for teachers, then that's a really awesome starting point for teachers to start engaging in this. So what we have done is focus on suburbs with large schools in Auckland and also school-aged population. And we're basically enriching these articles with open access GLAM media as well. And really enhancing the historical content on there. And again, if you look in the QR codes, you'll be able to see this, but I'll show you an example shortly. So I have a Wikipedian in residence in my team who's been funded by the Wikimedia Foundation, and he's done a huge job over the first 6 months of this year. Has added over 300,000 words to a bunch of these Auckland suburb articles. So if you come across an article about a suburb in Auckland and think that's really awesome, that's because of the Wikipedia in residence at Auckland Museum. He's added 4,500 references and over 1,300 images as well to highlight the different parts of Auckland. So this is an example of what I'm talking about, and if you've done the QR codes, you would have seen a before and an after of the page. So previously, Mangere Bridge is one of the first articles that Marty worked on. Previously, this page was like, the typical Wikipedia page. It's, that there's virtually no history there. It might be that a Pakeha farmer, bought some land, that a school was brought, that a train station was built, with some demographics and some notable people. Well, what we've done is gone in and just completely transformed the pages. And the history now starts with Māori history, which relates to the sort of foundational ideas of the history curriculum. We talk about what happened during the colonial period. We talk about the period of land confiscation, the period of colonisation. And then we also go through as much as we can, because we're relying on secondary sources, to talk about the sort of right up to the present, basically. You'll see in these illustrations that we have maps and images from the museum collections. We're putting in research that museum researchers have done, and then we're also linking out to a bunch of digitised content on other GLAM institutions. So again, teachers can go there and can start poking around and seeing what other materials there. So this is really the overview of the two projects. So they're both quite different in a sense, but they're both linked with that desire to provide the local histories and to provide the critical thinking skills. What's interesting with the curated project is that we're drawing on curatorial and community knowledge. There's a lot of consultation that's had to occur in this process, and that's being hosted on the museum's website. Whereas Understanding Our Past, the Wikipedia project, is being hosted on Wikipedia, and we can use published sources, but it's not as collection focused. The other thing is with Understanding Our Past is that we really see this as an inquiry management tool. When teachers write into us and they say, I'm from Mount Albert Grammar, can you help us? we're not able to answer every single inquiry or 200,000 different bespoke inquiries from all these students, but what we can do is say, we've created a Wikipedia article for you, you can go and look at that. Whereas with the curated one, it is much more about us actually creating new knowledge from the already existing research that curators have done. Really trying to be as technically simple and cost efficient as we can. We've heard today already about some of the pressures that the sector is under. So we're not creating a bespoke platform. You don't need expensive AV equipment to do the video recording. You can do that on a mobile phone. We're including 3D scans of objects. That can also be done on a mobile phone as well. So the main cost really is staff time and also some koha and some manaakitanga for the external people that are coming in. This is an awful picture that AI did for me, because I don't have a website to show you, so I asked ChatGPT and it's not very good at it, so don't ask ChatGPT to do website design for you. The other ones are like all this Romanesque and is awful. So just a couple of the other learnings before I wrap up. Again, we heard about relationships today. Community involvement and relationships, really important for the curated project that we're working on. It's an opportunity for us as a sector to leverage the relationships and the expertise that we have. It's multidisciplinary, and as I've already mentioned, extensive consultation, both internally and externally as well. There were 14 people on the distribution list of the project plan, and we've also presented to the Taumata Iwi, which is the Māori Advisory Board as well. So. But the really important thing about the curated project in particular is that working with these knowledge holders enables us to tell stories that we can't tell on Wikipedia because they haven't been published yet. And also it enables us to tell stories that they're comfortable sharing with us, with the museum staff, and putting on the museum website, but wouldn't necessarily be comfortable sharing on Wikipedia. We're also working really closely with the History Teachers Association, with some local secondary schools to test our ideas and content and to make sure that this is all really useful and really engaging for them. The other thing I just mentioned is that there is a really awesome New Zealand Wikipedia user community that people can tap into. So if you want to go down the Wikipedia route, there is a bunch of helpful people that can help there too. Last point that I want to make really strongly as well is we're trying to add value without new work. So one of the key approaches in the curated project in particular has been saying we don't want people doing new work. We're creating new resources, but this is based on research that we've already done. We know the pressures that people are under, and you don't want to add another thing to their to-do list. Also drawing on digitised content as well. So what this means though is that by using this content we can focus our time and our energy on logistics, because bringing external people in can be like herding cats sometimes. It can be very stressful. But it's also about focusing on the relationships and using our time and our energy to create or to build or to lean on the relationships so that we already have. So just to wrap things up, so going back to my first question, so how can we make these our online collections accessible, engaging and useful for teaching and learning about the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories Curriculum? I think a really important thing is to be clear who your audience is. You don't have to take the same approach that we have where we've targeted high school or secondary schools. You may want to drop younger if you feel that that's a need in your area. Undertake research on the needs of teachers if you can, or you can borrow ours, because I think that some of the things that come out of that are kind of applicable across the sector. Create criteria or frameworks for content that will be shared, or again, you can borrow ours. Make your collections accessible in multiple formats on different platforms so that you can reach different audiences for different purposes. Build on those already existing relationships that you've got, and then finally try to keep it simple and add value to the collection and collection knowledge and collection expertise that we already hold as a sector. Just before I wrap up, big thank you to our funders, the Wikimedia Foundation Alliance Fund and also Raywin Dalziel, also to the Aotearoa New Zealand Wikipedia user group have been massively helpful for us. Dr. Mark Shen, who is our researcher, and Marty Blaney, who is up in Auckland at the moment with the team of interns. So we've got a bunch of interns that are actually doing some Wikipedia editing as well as part of this project. So he's got them for the week, shepherding them around while all the rest of us are down here enjoying NDF. Thank you, and I think there might be some time for slides. Yeah, perfect.
I really hope there are questions.
Yeah.
Awesome mahi, James.
Thank you.
I'm still struck by that 90% of teachers using Wikipedia stat. things have changed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing is that part of it could be generational, like there's a lot more younger teachers, but I also think over the course of the COVID pandemic, Wikipedia's kind of shone out as a bit of a, a light in this sort of, World Wide Web where there's misinformation and people are just trying to sell you stuff. So I think, that definitely contributes to it as well.
Yeah, totally. So for questions, Slido is there. If you want to just put your hand up, I can bring the mic over to you as well, if that's easier.
And I was just going to say, you probably can't see my email address very well, but you're welcome to email me if you have any questions about this work as well. jtaylor@aucklandmuseum.com. Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah. I'll post it on the chat, on the app. Yeah.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Stephen Hodman. It's more of a comment, actually, because I used to be a history lecturer at University of Canterbury for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's with the Wikipedia of why teachers are using it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of experienced Wikipedia coming along and everybody was like hating it.
Yeah.
Don't use it, it's unreliable, to actually using it. And it goes to both of talks of that model of the big knowledge, but also that critical thinking.
Yeah.
Is that I was training students how to use it as a
Exactly.
teaching model for critical thinking, so that a student could go through and recognise that's a fact, that's an opinion, this is that. And so it does both things. And I think over time, I think that's the change.
Yes.
Is it's being used for both knowledge and
yeah, that's right. And
thinking.
the other thing that teachers have said to us is because there's references that can be verified, they can get teachers, are these references correct? What is the original saying? But the other thing is the talk and the edit page, I should say. Wikipedia is one of the few places, again, online that you can actually see how a web page has been edited and changed over time. And teachers are using that as illustrations of, how knowledge is being constructed. So, again, it does have that dual role, which is really interesting. Yeah.
I think there was another pathway over here somewhere.
I just wondered if you had a relationship with Auckland Public Libraries, Auckland City Libraries, they might be called, who have a large body of digitised material.
Yeah. We don't have a formal relationship with them yet, and so Sam, one of the other things that Sam's been doing is organising get-togethers of the Auckland GLAMs. We'd love to work with Auckland libraries, maybe thinking about editathons and that sort of thing in the future, but just with COVID kind of messing stuff up, we haven't quite got to that point yet, but we are drawing heavily on the Auckland Library's digitised content, and I think on that slide that I showed from Mangere Bridge, we're linking out to content that Auckland Libraries hold as well. So, yeah, we're absolutely using that content too. Yeah.
Anyone else? No more questions? Oh, sorry. Behind the pillar.
So I guess with the Wikimedia, or focusing on those local histories, what's the relationship been, or how's that experience been to, I guess, manage those relationships or kind of find reliable information from those groups, etc.?
So with the Wikipedia project, we are kind of bound by the norms and the values and the rules of the Wikipedia community. So it has to be published material. You can't create your own new research and that sort of thing. So it's kind of like a reference project in a sense that Marty's going in and just diving deep into published texts essentially, and that's what we have to limit ourselves to. So that's why, say, with the Wikipedia content, we're a bit light on post-1970s content. We're a bit light on some of the sort of reflecting contemporary Auckland in terms of migration that's occurred in the 1970s. So those are gaps that we can fill with the curated project. So yeah, so it's not as relationship heavy, but we do have a good relationship with the Wikimedia Foundation and also the relationship that we have with the New Zealand User Group. Whereas it's the curated project that is much more focused on the relationships with donors and knowledge holders and family of donors and that sort of thing as well. Yeah.
Any more questions? I've got one. Well, I'm curious actually. It seems like you're adding a heck of a lot of value for communities beyond teachers and students as well, in the way you're improving and enhancing the Wikipedia content.
Yep.
Is that something that the museum recognises as well? Is that part of...
We have, so one of the other things that I look after is our Wikipedia strategy, and what we've been trying to do is engage a bit more strategically with Wikipedia in general to enhance the Auckland-based content and also to get more of the museum's content out there. So it sort of ties in to that broader Wikipedia strategy as well. So yeah.
Great, mahi. Awesome. I think we are actually at time. We are. So another round of applause for James. And thank you to you all. Now's your time to shift sessions if you are. Shift rooms. Kia ora.